Religion has many victims, and these are the stories of how they survived. Hey, y'all, welcome back to the show. This week, we're taking things global. Our guest is joining us all the way from South Africa.
Yep. And his story. Woo, buckle up. He went from being hardcore Christian to what he calls himself an atheist today.
Yeah, as in no leash, no limits, and no longer afraid of hellfire.
We're talking about what happens when you walk away from faith entirely, how freedom can be both beautiful and messy, and what it means to rebuild your worldview from the ground up.
So grab your headphones, get comfy, and let's dive into this conversation that's as honest as it is wild. Now, T is going to read a poem that Dan wrote just for her.
This Tamara, a warrior with a heart of so bold, a journey through darkness to truth untold. You dared to question, to seek, and to find a path of critical thinking where logic and reason entwine. You shattered the chains of a faith that confined, a cult's oppressive grip that sought to control your mind. Your courage and your soul, you broke free from the night and emerged into light where freedom and truth take flight. The cost was high as you lost those you once held dear, but you gained something greater, sense of self crystal clear. Your voice, once silenced, now rings out loud and strong, a beacon of hope for those still trapped where you once belonged. Tamara, your strength is a testament to the human spirit's might, a shining example of resilience in the dark of the night. You've risen like a phoenix from the ashes of your past, a true hero with a heart that's brave and a spirit that will forever last. Let me introduce you to my dear friend from South Africa, Dan. Welcome.
Thank
Welcome
you
in.
so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
It is so good to have you here with us today, Dan. And being in South Africa, you're our first international guest on the show. So we're really excited about that because we're getting to take our show across the big pond this time.
Oh, I'm super happy, super happy to be here.
So, Dan, you came from a religious background, and could you just kind of tell us the beginning of your story and how you got started being part of the Christian faith?
Yeah, the start of being part of the Christian faith was kind of indoctrination, to put it bluntly. Since I was born, my parents were praying over me, and they had ministers come in and speak a word of prophecy over me and stuff like that. And from there, it just kind of grew up in churches, church camps, that sort of thing.
Did your parents name you a biblical name intentionally, or was that just a name that was given?
That was really just a name that was given. My full name is Rudolph Daniel, so it is really just a name.
So, what
Okay.
was you said that you were part of the Christian faith, but what was your denomination that you practiced?
It was kind of like that sort of, and then it later grew into a more fundamentalist Christian, but it wasn't as, fundamentalist as deep as it can get. It was just kind of there.
And I understand that you also, as your teenage years progressed, did you become more involved in your youth ministries and the ministries of your church? Because I know at one time you went into theology school. Was that because you felt that you had the calling of God, or was that more collectively thought that that's what your plan for your life would do?
So yeah, essentially, I've always had a heart to do music, and specifically in the metal genre. So I wanted to I vocaled for a band for a while, and then I came in contact with people who were more like me, kids, who were suicidal and down, just super depressed and stuff. And I saw that sort of resonated with me because I was also in that spot in my life. And yeah, I saw that and I thought, hey, how amazing would it be if I could bring the ministry to them? So yeah, I wanted to do that, and then the music kind of fell through, and then I thought, okay, let me be. Why can't I just be like a youth pastor or something like that? And I really felt that was God's calling on my life, and so yeah, I went to a school and I studied to become a youth pastor.
Did your mental health issues start in your teenage years? When did you first notice, and what was the response of the church or your parents regarding mental health?
I remember way back in my life, it was extremely yeah, I was extremely depressed and suicidal, and the church's response essentially to that was, "Oh, don't be depressed, or don't be depressed. Depression is spiritual oppression."
Yes, it's
And
spiritual
I mean,
warfare. Yes.
yeah. So exactly, and essentially that's where it was left. It was never taken any further. It wasn't taken seriously. And my psychiatrists and psychologists have all said, no, this guy needs to be, institutionalized kind of thing, because he's a danger to himself. And my mother or my parents didn't really take that very seriously until, one morning they walked into my room and the bed was just soaked in blood. And so it was really rough. And then from there on, I started getting the help that I needed, but still very reluctantly. Not from my side, from like the church's side.
Yeah. Because the church doesn't know how to handle mental health. That their only answer is to try and pray it away, which we know that
Exactly.
doesn't work. You can't pray away a medical condition. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
work that way. That just causes more harm and more trauma and it adds to the depression, you know?
Yes.
It is that's so sad. So what was that response like after they found you though? Because I can only imagine because, them not being equipped to handle that situation. For me, just for you, I couldn't imagine what you were going through, being in an environment, feeling all of that, and knowing that you're surrounded by people that aren't really taking what you're going through seriously enough, you know? That just for me it's really sad. It's heartbreaking because those are the people that should be supporting you the most and trying to get you the help that you need instead of just, expecting you to just push it off and act like it's no big deal, you know?
Yeah, that was it was quite a dark time in my life, especially since like I was going to youth groups at the time, and the gospel at the time that was being preached was very much an anti-depression gospel, and you shouldn't be depressed, like I said earlier, and like you said, spiritual warfare type thing. And the other kids that were there that were feeling like me, like flushed their medicine down the toilet because that's
Yes.
what, that was what was preached. That was what was told to do because, you need to take a step of faith and flush all your medicine because you will be healed. And it's so
I
ignorant
saw
to
a
think that.
diabetic remove their insulin pump, the insulin
Oh,
pump that was keeping them alive because they were believing in faith that God was going to heal them. They ended up in the emergency room in the ICU because they almost died. But they were believing in faith that they were going to be healed. And you're not the first person to tell me, that people have, laid their medicine down. My pastor's wife had told me literally to quit taking my antidepressants at one point in time because she said that they were evil, that, depression was from the devil. And I was just basically coming into agreement with the devil by taking that medication. No joke. And I
exactly.
didn't I didn't listen to
Exactly.
her. I
Yes.
continued taking my medication because that's the only thing that was keeping me from hurting myself, honestly,
Mm,
because I was so depressed during that time. So, I'm thankful that I didn't listen, but, in the back of my mind, I can't help but wonder how many people have listened and
mm,
have hurt themselves because they listened, you know? It's just
yeah.
really
And
scary
how
stuff.
And how difficult must that be as a teenager with all the teenage issues and emotions and
Mm,
hormones going on to be able to go to church and think that this is I remember what I was like when I was a teenager. I believed I mean, you could say the sky was green, and if I didn't believe it, I would go pray about it. And I
Yep.
would
mm,
be like, pray until I knew the sky was green. If you
yeah.
Yep.
understand what I'm saying, how difficult was your mental health journey as a teenager, knowing that you're going back to church? And when
Mm.
did you start questioning exactly what they were saying? Because at some point, between the times of 12 and 18, 19, 20, there had to be wait a minute, wait a minute. They're not helping the other kids around you, even if you couldn't see that they were not helping you. Did you notice that the children that were flushing their meds down the toilet, that there was other things that were going on that didn't make sense to you?
So there was this uh youth leader. She was also a teenager at the time, but she was a little bit more advanced in her Christianity, I guess. And she was appointed as one of the leaders, and she was going through a really, really, really rough time. I mean, she was, I think, just as suicidal as I was, um, and she had flushed her stuff down the toilet, and as a step of faith. And honestly, I had never seen her more depressed ever in her life. But she put on this charade of, or this face, of I'm fine, everything's okay, everything's good because the Lord is going to help me. And so, like, just that little thing really made me start questioning certain aspects of the Christian doctrine. I never questioned Christianity itself because that was the right religion. And at some point, I just kind of, I hate saying this, but I think I pleaded ignorant. I was like, oh no, it's okay. God will answer this prayer. It's fine. Um, as I was so, taught to do.
The cognitive dissonance is real because,
Yeah,
we can be, when we're indoctrinated and we are in those environments, we can have the truth right in front of us, but we're still going to look for something that confirms our bias because that's what we're
absolutely.
taught is right. It's like she said, we know that the sky is blue, but if our
Mhm.
pastor says it's green, we're going to go find whatever data that we can to back up that
Yes,
it's green because that's what the
yes,
pastor said and that's truth, you know?
yes,
And for me, it got to the point where I couldn't continue to distance myself from the truth, if that makes sense,
yeah,
because those things continue to present themselves over and over, and you can only deny truth for so long.
yes.
And that's the way it was for me. So, at one point, so you went to school, and what did life look like for you after you got done with school? Did you go on and start preaching or teaching, or what did that look like for you after that?
So I think let's just rewind back to the school thing. Like because at the time I was doing mission outreaches and stuff like that. So like up into Africa, Mozambique, Malawi, Zimbabwe, that sort of thing. And we did quite a lot of mission trips. And then when we were here back at home, it was kind of, every street corner you could find, that's where you preach.
Yeah.
But this was all during the studies, essentially. And then my wife started getting very, very sick. Um, she had a brain tumor, but before that was diagnosed, essentially she just got really very sick, extremely lethargic. I mean, she fell asleep behind the wheel of a car once, luckily at
Oh,
a
wow.
traffic light. So it's not like anything happened major there, but yeah, it was
Yeah.
crazy. And everybody just kept, I don't know why or for what reason, but I was like, this is cancer. But the church kept telling me, no, it's not cancer. She needs to change her diet. And also the doctors, same thing, kept telling us, no, she just needs to change her diet and everything. And we did that, and that didn't help. Um, it was so long. The battle was so long, and eventually we did get the cancer diagnosis. Um, and the church was very very quick to pray for us and very slow to really doing anything else, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and even one of our church leaders at the time said they don't want to come close to my wife because it's too hard for them.
Wow.
So that was just, I don't know, that kind of made me really angry at the church, but it didn't make me question my faith just yet.
Yeah.
Um, it was only when I started getting hectically into the studies when my senior pastor told me, okay, well, you got to study the word. So I actually opened the Bible for the first time in my life and studied cover
Yeah.
to cover every verse, every little thing. And I just saw in the Bible, I was just like, this God guy is not a good dude.
He's
Like,
a jerk. He's a jerk. When you start reading the stories, like from the very beginning, like he creates everybody and then he doesn't like the people he created. So let's just wipe them all out. Like, what?
exactly,
This is your good God? Come on. And it doesn't get any better
exactly.
from there because then you go just
No.
a little bit further and he's literally mauling some kids for mocking a bald dude. Like he sends a bear. What?
Exactly,
Dan,
exactly.
during this time, was it before she started getting sick that you had your little guy, or was it after, or where did that come from? And how, um, with her being sick and the responsibilities and being in theology school,
Yeah.
what was that like to carry that much weight on your shoulders? At
Yeah,
first,
so
when you didn't know you just knew she was sick. And then the dismissiveness of the church that
mm,
now, when was the baby involved? You now have a young family, a young marriage, you're in theology school, you have a baby, and your wife is being diagnosed. That is a lot for a
yeah,
man to carry on his shoulders.
yeah, for sure. I mean, being a single parent wasn't easy. And then looking after my wife. Look, my folks did help a lot, and I'm really appreciative of that. But yeah, essentially like looking after my child. He was about 2.5, 2 years old when she got really, really sick.
Wow.
And then it was kind of she couldn't you know, function as, a human, I guess. Um, yeah, so he was about 2.5 years old, and then at the age of 3, she passed away.
Wow.
And pre you can tell me or not tell me. The church was there helping you, right? Helping you pick up the slack with the baby and babysitting and being right there with you. Please tell me that somebody, I'm
Oh
gonna
man.
start crying right now because when you're thinking,
Ah,
it's the 2-year-old,
yeah.
surely they did more than just say, pray about it.
No, look, they kind of voided any responsibility towards us at all by
Yeah.
saying, no, we'll pray for you. And look, I
Yeah.
mean, there were pastors who were walking a road with me, and I put that in quotation marks, where they were essentially offering free counsel, but it, it really wasn't much because at the end I could see they were really hesitant to do anything. They just pitied me, and that was about it.
What does free counsel do when you need somebody to pick him up from daycare, help you
Hmm.
with the chores, make sure that his clothes are ready for the week, or a
Mm,
load of laundry is done, or a food is given to you, or a dinner is made, or
mm,
somebody kicks in to make sure that that extra pressure. I'm sorry, but it's disgusting when they are like, pray about it, but what you need is a meal. When they say
mhm,
pray about it, but what you need is a babysitter. When they say pray about it, but what you need is human kindness in a
mm.
time of need.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
where a lot of churches drop the ball. And we're seeing this played out right now with, that woman who's been going viral on TikTok the past few days, who's been calling the churches and pretending that she has a
Yeah,
hungry baby and the
yeah.
baby's crying. And she's like, my baby hasn't eaten since yesterday. And all I need is a can of formula. And they're turning her
Mm,
down left
mm,
and right.
And if I'm not mistaken, the woman who is doing that, I saw somewhere is Mormon. And then
Wow.
the Christian responses of how they are attacking God's people is like the most disturbing, sickening thing. I'm going to get way too passionate. God's people are being persecuted?
Yes, I saw a post on Threads this morning that was by one of
Yes.
these churches, literally saying this was my church that she called, and this is a scheme from the enemy to attack us Christians, and we need to shut this down and stop entertaining this right now. And I'm
That
like, no,
is,
you guys are mad because this is a mirror that's being held
mm,
up to you. And I'm telling you,
absolutely.
every bit of the evil of the church is being exposed for what it is right now. The protecting the
Mm,
pedophiles, the ignoring
hmm
the hungry, the ignoring the houseless. While we
mm.
know that in 2024, they earned over $557 billion.
Jeez.
Billion. And you know how many people should not be starving in America? Zero if they took in 557 billion. But I digress. See, I could talk about it all day
What?
too.
But but see, I won't digress because we are exposing it today.
Yes.
But it was going on, what, Dan, how many years ago? 6 years ago with your little
Mm,
guy?
yeah.
7 years ago? If you want to expose it, let's start. It's been from the beginning of time. We are just now finding our voices to say, you're disgusting. Do you
Yes.
mean to tell me not one member of that church, not one godly woman could say, hey, Dan, let me come over and make dinner for you tomorrow night? I would do that, and I'm not a Christian. I'm a feral atheist, and I would be the first one at your door, making sure that that baby has got clothes for the week and that you're okay and that everything's taken care of. The best that I could do within the limits or the limitations that I would set or with the consent that you would give me. But
Mm,
coming over with a thing of lasagna or a dinner pre-made that all you have to do is put it in the oven saves you a couple hours where you can take time with that baby who's on the spectrum. It is mind-blowing to me and disgusting that it's been happening for so many years.
Okay.
yeah.
And you know what? You just made a really valid point because right now in America, we know that the president is withholding the funding for SNAP and
hmm
EBT. He has all the power in the world to fund those programs.
hmm
And you know what? The churches are not the ones that are stepping up and feeding people right now.
No.
It's the satanic temple that's
Yes.
stepping up to feed people. It's the
Exactly.
witches that are stepping up to feed people. It's the mosques that are stepping up to feed people. So I don't ever want to hear a Christian say, we're the ones who are here to help people ever again. Because
Yeah.
right now they're proving that they are not here for that. All they're
Mhm.
here is to steal, kill, and destroy. Everything that they have constantly accused the bad people or the sinners of doing is the same
Mm.
things that they have been doing. They're okay with oppression just as long as it's their version of oppression,
Oh
just as
yeah.
long as it's women not preaching or teaching, just as long as it's women not having rights to their own bodies, just as long as it's little girls being told that they're to remain pure until they're married.
Mm.
But if we start preaching a different message, if we start preaching about love and inclusion and equality, that's when they start calling you a heretic and a sinner and a heathen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Come back, bring us back to you. How did it make you feel? Like, how does it make you feel looking back now? We can go back in a couple minutes to do, but when you look back and you see how they could
Yeah.
have treated you.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I lost all faith in the church at that point in time, especially with the one that I was in. So I do want to say something though. My folks were part of a different church at the time, and that church didn't know me from a bar of soap, and they did. They honestly stepped in. They um delivered food, tins of food and stuff like that, and then they cooked for us. And there was from my mother's church, and you got to understand the church that she goes to is an extremely conservative church, and they are part of the Dutch Reformed church, and they bent over backwards for us. They really did. But my own church did nothing. And my parents helped out so much. I was honestly so lucky to have them because I know my folks, they also bent over backwards for me and my wife, and for my kids. So I must say we did receive a lot of help. But the 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 people who helped us predominantly was a church that wasn't even remotely connected to us at all. And it was my folks, and then also my atheist friends who like would also cook for us and bring us meals and constantly. I must say, I think the most the people who most like um how can I put it, constantly checked up on me would be between my atheist friends at the time and the church that, like I said, I wasn't even committed or connected to.
And I'll just say this is that I understand exactly what you're saying. So I'll digress on my little rant rage there, right? But it usually is strangers. It's not the
Mm,
people who are supposed to love us first, our
mm,
own community that we turn to. It's not the ones that you expect to be there in times of need. It is those that actually are not connected to us. And that is a shame. It should be first, those
yeah.
who know
So
you.
what did your deconstruction process look like after that, Dan?
Okay, so yeah, um, essentially what that looked like was um, I had lost more and more faith in the church, especially, like I said, my church. But I also, like, when I was studying the Bible, it became very evident to me that what I was believing in was a falsified version of what I thought I was believing in. Like the
Yeah.
Bible itself was very different from what the pastors made it out to be, and God was very different from what the pastors made him out to be. Um, and upon doing that, I decided to go back and do my GED, properly complete that, And one of my subjects that I absolutely loved was biology. And I got this poster for human evolution, and I was like, what? I looked at this and I thought to myself, what? I didn't know this is what evolution was. Um, like I'd only been told that evolution was, we come from a rock and then we, come from monkeys and stuff. And how stupid is that? And
Yep.
everything the church had taught me what evolution was was exactly the opposite of what evolution actually
Yes.
is. And I found so much passion, and I always have, in biology. And I started studying evolution back to front. I just started following the timeline of human evolution, of whale evolution. I started doing a whole lot of research into that. And I found that there are so many, not everything, but so many naturalistic explanations for how we came about and how the world came about. And I thought, well, this is amazing. And I realized at that moment I didn't need a god to explain anything.
You don't need the fairy tale anymore.
No, I don't need the fairy tale, and I don't need to listen to the dogma that has been taught to me my whole life. I don't need to focus on this narrow-minded view of the world. God created the world in X many days, and that's how it happened. Don't question it too much though, because it all falls apart. Um,
It does. And that's the crazy part is when you're in it, you don't realize how fragile it really is. You don't
yeah.
realize how easy it is for the whole thing to just crumble. But all it takes is learning that one thing. It really
Mm,
does. Because it's like you learn that one thing and it's like blocks. They just all tumble after that. Because it's like,
mm.
okay, well, what else do I not know that I thought I knew? And for me, it was
Yeah,
just like an avalanche. It really was.
because for
Yeah.
me with evolution, I believed that we literally one day was a monkey, an ape, and
Yes.
the next day we were a man or
Yeah.
a woman, right?
Yes.
I did not realize evolution, and I'm going to make a very embarrassing truth here until I was 50 years old and sitting in my science class at college. And the professor told me that the way evolution works, and I made him repeat it to me to two or three times, was because when we started moving, people started going to different places in the
Mm,
world. And
Mm,
then we would, find somebody that was of a different nationality or a
mm.
different place and time, or we found somebody who was taller than us, or somebody we fell in that was shorter than us. That when those DNAs come together, that continues evolution. And I was like, what? I digress. So, with your biology, did you go on to study into university, into college? And what did your field become after you left theology? Because I'm assuming in those times, somewhere you totally left being a part of theology and becoming a minister. So explain that to us. When did that switch happen?
Yeah, so it was around the time that I really went more into studying, biology and stuff. And I never did it at a like a college level. So it was more I studied biology, but like I um it's hard to explain. I never went to college for it, but I did study the college level biology. I did go on to do a bunch of courses, but not like I said, I don't have paper for it. I can't show you, hey, here's my degree. Unfortunately, I would love to do that. But yeah, so I left theology altogether and I went to study more naturalistic explanations for the world and for yeah, yeah. So
Listen,
that's
intelligence is not measured by a piece of paper or a
yeah,
degree.
yeah.
No.
Remember that.
Because listen, you can go to theology school like I do and get a piece of paper and it ain't worth nothing because you end up finding out that the school wasn't even accredited after you did all that work.
Oh yes.
Because
Yes,
it was a
I've
Bible
been to
college,
that.
you know? I
Yep,
mean,
yep,
it's great. It's
yep.
the
And
more
it
you
wasn't
know.
accredited.
No,
No,
no. It was a college that was start up because the pastor's father-in-law started this school. He had been a missionary for years, decided to start a college in his own name. He created the curriculum, everything. It wasn't an accredited school. So anybody who went there paid all that money to go to school, but your degree wasn't worth the paper it was printed on.
exactly. That's exactly the
And a
Bible
lot of
college I
churches
went
will
to
do
was
that. A
exactly the
lot of
same.
Bible colleges are like that. And you don't even
Mm,
know until it's over and done.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
And you realize you purchased their mansion and their cars
Yeah,
Yeah.
and all
yeah.
of their, bougie stuff for the females. That's
Yep.
when you realize after you leave, you're like, she got a breast implant with my money.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
where are you at now on your journey, Dan?
So where I am now, I started an atheist community about 2 years ago, 3 years ago maybe, and I wanted to grow it as a community and everything, and that just didn't quite take. And I think it's because I didn't have any of the resources, and I was still kind of, going along on my own. But I recently rebranded it to the Faithless Ones, and Tamara is part of that as well. And it
Woohoo!
is, it is, it's starting. We're kicking it off along with a whole bunch of people. So I'm very happy about the direction of it. So essentially, what we want to do is we want to promote critical thinking, separation of church and state, church and school specifically here in South Africa, because that is a crime in my books.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so we're promoting that, but then, it's kind of evolving as we go along. And I think it's amazing. Like Tamara has, created the safe space for people who are deconstructing. And I think it's amazing because especially the women who are deconverting and they find it a struggle, but they find this safe space on the Faithless Ones with Tamara. She's created this beautiful safe space. Bleh. And For instance, I'm doing more of the promotion of critical thinking. So when I go live on TikTok or something like that, it's more, let's think about the Bible
Yeah.
and really just dissect that, because without any ignorance or any bias to any God or anything like that.
But let's just
Um,
look at it in an intellectual way, from an
yes,
intellectual perspective, and let's just be real about what this thing is really saying here.
yes, exactly. Exactly. And I think that's something that's so important, especially because of people who are still under the God delusion.
And it's also
And
beautiful
oh,
that you are providing this space for people that may be questioning what it is that they've always been taught is truth. And
Mm,
they're in an environment where they can ask questions where they might not be able to ask them where in the communities that they're currently in. That's a
yes,
beautiful thing.
yes.
and even if it's just one scripture, because sometimes we get caught up and we know, like, Noah's Ark doesn't kind of make sense, and
Mhm,
Adam and Eve doesn't make sense, and Caleb, Adam and Eve's son begged God not to send him out into those cities. So there was other places outside the
mm,
garden that doesn't make sense, and those are in the first couple chapters. But also being able to critically look at just an individual scripture, like in Psalms, it says God loves the brokenhearted and he
mm,
despises the the defiant ones.
Yeah.
mm,
Well, wait a minute. If you take that scripture by itself, how many of us Christian or ex-Christians or Christians feel broken?
Yep.
mm,
Our mental health feels broken. Our lives feel broken. Our relationships feel broken. Our
mm,
parenting skills feel broken. Our ability to maneuver the world feels broken. And what Dan is doing with the faithless ones is being able to take that scripture and say, wait a minute, why are we feeling broken?
mm,
That's
Yeah.
indoctrination at its finest. And why would God want somebody who's always broken? Why wouldn't He want me whole? Why wouldn't He
mm,
want to see me pursuing my dreams and my goals
mm,
and
mm.
stepping into my authenticity? Why am I always underneath this cloud of brokenness? Dan, thoughts?
I think it's easier to manipulate you, to be honest. I think it's when you're at a broken place, you believe anything to make you feel better. And I find
Ooh.
that very much within the Christian theology, or rather ideology,
Yes, because in
is
you're taught that brokenness is holiness. The
mm,
more broken you are, the more blessings you're about to receive. Am I right?
exactly, exactly. And it's so sad, really, because I mean, it's you take people at their most vulnerable, at their most broken state, and you promise them this thing that can fix them, and they're willing to literally pay through their nose to get this thing.
Yeah.
Dan, you are a single dad of a little one that's on the spectrum. When you look at the child on the spectrum from critical thinking skills, right? It's easy to understand how that child thinks. What has been your experience where you live in your community towards a child with autism?
So, let me just preface everything by saying I am not single anymore. I am married.
I know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, and my wife is absolutely incredible. She is bending over backwards to try and help me with Micah.
That's wonderful.
So yeah, I mean, even though, look, we're both at a place where we don't quite understand this, that with autism, there's a whole plethora of things to understand with it, and we don't have the first clue. And as I spoke to Tamara the other day, even the doctors, we're fighting the doctors just for a diagnosis, and they don't want to admit that it's autism, and I can't, for the life of me, understand why. But yeah, we are trying. Every new step is a new challenge for us. So
Okay, so from the time that your wife had passed away, there had to be moments that you realized that maybe your son, because he was little, was portraying and displaying um not the quote unquote norm that another 2-year-old or 3-year-old or 4-year-old would display, right? What was the church's reaction? Or had you already left the church once your wife passed away? Were you done with church and you never returned? And then the reaction from your community, your church community, and then how did that help evolve you into the parent you are today? And then you met your new wife who is like-minded as you. How did that evolve? And what was that like, approaching a relationship from an atheist point of view instead of a Christian point of view? With redating and finding a partner and moving forward. So it was kind of a two-part.
Yeah, so okay, let's go to the first parter. So yeah, after my wife passed, it was kind of a thing of, I left the church entirely. Um, started doing things my own way, because, like I said, reading the stuff in the Bible is absolutely abhorrent. I mean, the Bible tells me that if my son is unruly, I should take him to the edge of the city and let the elders stone him to death. So, there's that. And yeah, so I kind of, yeah, there was it was quite a time in my life where I realized Micah isn't quote unquote normal, in the sense that, the other kids were learning how to catch rugby balls and learning their ABCs, where my son was busy learning the intricacies and the differences between mitosis and meiosis. And yeah,
Gotta love
so
them little ones.
it was insane. He learned how DNA works at a very young age. And look, yeah, sure, that's probably because of me and I love biology, but for a kid to grasp that so early on is insane. Um, so yeah, so I don't know, it was tough because in the beginning when he was in pre-K, it was easier. It was almost easier because it was like he could just kind of do his own thing in class. But now that he's in, grade one, it's a lot more different. He has to socially adapt to what's happening there. He's on the top of his class, like intellectually, he's far beyond the other kids, but he's just not socially adapting to what's happening around him. He will storm out of the class and stuff like that when it comes to, just the slightest bit of overstimulation, because for him it's not so slight. Um, so yeah, he will just kind of. So it's been kind of a struggle, and now, with my new wife, we're working at it step by step, and obviously we also have a lot to learn. But we're hopefully getting there, and she's very understanding, and it's great to have like the nurturing side from her as well, because I'm very logical and pragmatic, but I love my son more than anything, and I am still like very emotional with him. But it's very nice to have almost a nurturing side, something that he hasn't had in such a long time. And then you got to also understand that on top of his issues, quote unquote, once again, he's also got a lot of trauma. I mean, a kid has lost his mother at the age of 3. That is insane, to have this person, this nurturing, loving person, just ripped away from you at the age of
Yeah.
3. So everything is just insane. I mean, he's 7 now, and he still cries for his mother before he goes to bed some nights, and that's not something that's just going to go away.
No, that that's hard, because even though he was that young, he still remembers that's his mom, you know.
Yeah,
There's still that connection there and that bond that was formed
yeah,
between the two of them. And that's hard. That's really hard. I
yeah.
mean, even as an adult, that's a hard thing to process, let alone being a
Mm,
child that's not fully equipped with the emotional development at that age.
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
hard.
So you put all that
And we,
together, and
yeah.
you have Christians tell you it's all part of God's plan. And you're just like,
Oh, that's a slap in the
dude,
face. That is such a slap in the face.
How is that God's plan? Exactly where does God's plan come and play?
Yeah.
yeah.
I have so many questions when I hear people's stories, right? And I understand that people think that everything has its time and place, right? But why do I need that to prove that I'm strong?
Mm,
Why does
Yeah.
that little guy need that to prove to who? He has to prove that he's fulfilling God's plan at three,
mm,
4, 5, 6, 7. Why do we leave those burdens of a great, big, huge God on the shoulders of a 3-year-old?
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you tell him like if he acts in a certain way, he's hurting God's heart. And I'm like, what
Yes.
the actual F, dude? Because like, this is a child. And you're telling him that he can hurt the heart of your almighty God. And I'm just thinking, your God then isn't that almighty, is
Yeah.
he? Like, how almighty can he be that my 7-year-old son could break his heart?
Yep. I was 5 years old when I gave my heart to the Lord because I was convinced that I was a dirty, rotten sinner worthy of hell. And I think back on
Yeah,
that all the time. I was 5. I was an innocent 5-year-old baby, like pure, Like I
yeah,
think about
yeah.
that and I'm like, they had you thinking you were filthy. You were
Mm,
no good at 5 years old. How
yeah.
messed up is that? Like, and we wonder why I ended up with mental health issues. Like, come on now.
Exactly.
I don't
Exactly.
have to
That's
wonder. They told me I was rotten at 5 years
exactly.
old.
Exactly. I can't tell you how many times my son comes, and again, this is where I feel like the separation of church and schools, specifically here in South Africa, because they preach to them at school, and
Yes.
my son comes to me one day and he's just like, I'm such a naughty boy. I'm such a naughty, naughty boy because, like, there's only one good person, and that's God. And I'm just like,
Oh,
dude,
my Lord.
no,
No.
And on top of that, he comes to me and tells me, Daddy, you're going to go to hell because you don't believe in God. And it's like, what are they teaching these kids? And I mean, it's evidently the same thing they taught me as a kid, but
Hmm.
I
But now
didn't
that you're
realize
awake,
it.
it's so much more egregious. You're like, my God, why?
Absolutely. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Because as a
And I do
parent,
want
you're
to,
more moral than that God is. And that's the
Yeah,
reality of it. You would never do the same thing. You would never tell your kid those things. You would never treat them in that way. And that's why
absolutely.
it's so disturbing. Go ahead, T.
I know, and the fact that he's 7, okay, let's just be real for a minute. Children with autism are literal thinkers.
Mm,
They think black and white.
yeah.
They don't see the grays of the world. They don't see the colors of the world. If you're
Mm,
wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, you're right. If
mm,
you're going to hell, you're going to hell. Then that only means you can go to heaven if you're going to heaven.
Yes.
So
mm-hmm,
you are only given a this or a that when you
mm-hmm,
have a child on the spectrum, right?
mm,
And then to try to explain to that child that you can be a good person.
mm,
And Heather is a different type of Christian, and I
mm,
understand that. But for some of the Christians to get the concept in their brains that this is right and this is wrong, and they're going to then teach my child
mm,
Yep.
what is right or wrong
mm.
outside of how I feel or outside of my belief systems or my secular thinking or my atheism is just disturbing.
Yeah.
I don't even know what else to say. To think that I have to parent under God's rules, to
Mm,
think I have to police my child under God's ordinances,
mm,
and to think that I can't just let my child be a child, roll in the grass, enjoy the leaves, play in
yeah.
the snowfall that's happening outside right now. It's just mind-boggling to me that everything becomes a God of the gap. If you don't
Yeah.
have an answer, it must be God. If you have
Yeah.
an
Yes.
answer, are you sure it's God? If you get a sign, that's God. But if you don't
Mm-hmm.
get a sign, like, oh my God, what is it going to be like at my job tonight? Give me a sign.
Mm.
If I don't get a sign, then I walk around thinking, well, maybe I'm not in the right place. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this
Yeah.
job.
Yep.
Maybe I should be changing the way I think. I
Maybe
got
Yep.
in a
I've got
car
hidden
accident.
sin in my life. Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
if you've
Exactly.
if you're sick, you have sinned.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Bottom line. And
Mm-hmm.
having said that, Dan, with finding a partner that thinks like you, was that an easy task whenever, or was that just a no-brainer because you didn't believe anymore? Is that just my indoctrination thinking out loud?
I'm sorry, could you perhaps repeat the question? I
When
didn't
you
quite get that.
when you started dating and your wife that is now your wife, right?
Mm,
You think like you both are atheists or agnostics, I'm not sure, but you have a kindred understanding of how
mm.
each of you feel about the world around you and your worldviews. How is that different? Not in your last relationship, but as in the aspect of, being able to feel free enough not having the rules and the policing of a Bible to dictate how you interact and what you feel is right for you and your family today.
Yeah, I mean, so when I started dating my wife, she was kind of one of those people who like religion didn't really bother her. It was kind of it she didn't care either way. It wasn't she was she wasn't what I call a militant atheist. She was just a I don't give a damn about anything about like that. So it didn't really bother her. But I think the more she dated me, the more she became angry with the concept of a God. And the more she was I guess the more militant she became about it. So yeah, I mean, I think what's really nice about that is the fact that we are building our own foundations on how to raise a family and how to educate our child. So yeah. So I don't know. We build on this foundation of there isn't eternal punishment, there isn't eternal reward. We live now. This is what we've got, and we make the best of it today.
That's actually really beautiful because, so much of being in the Christian faith is not being accountable for the things that you do, right? Because we
Yeah.
can just pray it away. But when
Hmm.
you're looking at things from a more secular point of view, there's actually consequences for your actions,
Yeah.
and repentance is actually a real thing that you have to actually do,
Yeah.
instead of just talk about. So I love the fact that you are, have found a new path, but you're building your own foundation of what's true to you and what it is that you believe. That's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I must say it's scary because there is no God to fall back on. This is
No.
like
And
if
there's
I
no
fuck up, I fuck
framework.
up.
There's
It's
no
my fault.
guidebook, It's like
Yeah.
we don't have like a game plan now. So much of Christianity was built on certainty and
Mhm.
having everything figured out.
Mm.
And I think that's one thing about, after deconstruction is that's the thing that you have to be okay with dying is that certainty because
Mm.
in deconstruction, there isn't a lot of that. Like you can prove facts about different things, but you're not ever going to have that absolute certainty again because you don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next.
Yeah, exactly.
And in all
Yeah.
honesty, we never did. Like when I look back on my Christian life, I didn't have certainties. I didn't have absolutes. I just had faith that God would work everything out. So a lot of my indoctrination and my belief systems came by what I felt, what I thought the Bible interpreted to me, what scriptures resonated with me that day. Like it would be my mantra for the day, come and see that the Lord is good. It would be different things that would make me feel good. It would make me do better because I was feeling good. And then when I look back now, and I'm sure, Dan, you're like, I didn't never really had that certainty. I
Mm.
didn't know what was going to happen after death. I don't know what happened before I was born. I don't know what's going to happen to these certain issues that I feel or think about. And you can sometimes feel like, God, I'm an indoctrinated word right there. I am out here winging it by the seat of my pants. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. I've always winged it by the seat of my pants.
Yes,
I just
same.
went to the altar and prayed.
Same.
Yeah.
So, Dan, you have left the church. You're an atheist now. You have a community. And I just want to ask you if you had any words of advice or encouragement for our listeners that are listening to us today, what would you want to share with them?
Well, in short, to question everything. Don't believe just what you were told, especially not from the pulpit. Um, Question absolutely
Everything.
everything. And at the end of the day, if you want to keep your faith and just be, have faith, that is entirely, entirely your choice, but do it critically. Think about it critically. Do not just accept dogma.
Yes.
We're sitting here not even knowing what to say,
We're
but we're
just
blessed.
nodding our heads. We're like, yes, we
The
totally agree.
atheist and the Celtic Christian are sitting here together going
Yes.
like this.
Yes, because I always tell people question everything. That has
Mm,
literally been the number one thing since deconstruction is question everything. I don't care if it's your Meemaw saying it. I don't care if
yeah,
it's somebody you've known your entire life and you've never known them to tell a lie. Question it because the
yeah,
reality is that Christians lie without even know that they're doing it. They don't
that's
know that
it.
they're doing it because
Yeah,
they've been indoctrinated to believe
yeah,
the lies since birth. I was one of them. I believed the lies. I recited the lies. I preached the lies. I taught the lies. I had Bible studies where I recited the lies. Like,
yeah.
just because somebody has a cross around their neck doesn't mean that they actually have studied that Bible that they love
Hmm.
to beat all the time.
Yep,
Yes. And Dan,
exactly.
we've had a wonderful conversation, but I want to make sure that there's nothing that you really wanted to say that hasn't been discussed or said throughout this last hour. Take the time and make sure that there's anything that you would like to share with us, tell us, explore with us, that you take this time to do that now.
I think what I'd like to say is just that, yes, I am an atheist. I am an atheist not because I'm angry with God, but because I don't have sufficient evidence for God. Now, just because I'm an atheist doesn't mean I hate Christianity, or well, I hate Christianity. I don't hate Christians. Um, Again, um, I am I am willing to change my mind about Christianity if presented with enough evidence. But I think what people assume when I say I'm an atheist is that I hate God and I hate Christianity and I hate Christians and I don't. I have a really, 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 really good friend, and he is a pastor and he is a phenomenal dude. And we go back and forth about theology all the time, but it's in good spirit. And that being said, we had a lot of help from a church, and I have never, ever, ever, ever seen a church act like that. And I would like to say that it's because of them that I am not so closed-minded to Christians. I don't think I'll ever be able to put the toothpaste back in the tube and become a Christian. That'll never happen again for me. But like I said, if it could be proven without a doubt, then I would at least believe there is a God. Um, I would never
Then
follow
we
him,
would
I
be
think.
then we would join the Celtic Christian church.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I have a safe space for you, I promise.
And I understand exactly what you're saying because sometimes people want to get caught up that it was church hurt, that
Hmm.
these horrible things happened to you
Hmm.
throughout your life, or, that your wife passed away and that made you angry with God,
Yeah.
and or with the Christian people. Not
Hmm.
everybody experiences that. And I have to tell you that there is never a time in my life I once was that Christian.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
understand what they think and what they feel. I am no way angry at the people who believe because I
Yeah.
believe.
yeah,
I believed
Yeah.
it with all my heart. I believed everything that was said to me across that pulpit. I
Yeah.
wasn't a rebellious child. I wasn't a child that decided to do her own thing. No, I instantly snapped one day and walked out of a church and never returned. But it wasn't because I was angry at a God. I wanted God in my life.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted religion. I wanted that feeling.
Yeah.
I didn't want to walk this walk by myself with nothing.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's the thing that people don't understand is that deconstruction isn't something you wake up, do, and there you go. Haha, you're happy.
yeah.
No, you essentially um,
Have your entire world ripped out from
Yeah,
underneath of you. It's
you
traumatizing. Like it is
exactly.
devastating.
You essentially demonize yourself to the whole community that you see as family, you know.
Yes.
You break down every single thing that you've been taught. Your whole foundation gets literally ripped from under you because everything you were taught was a lie.
Yep.
It's not a fun thing and it's not an easy thing. It's something that is extremely, extremely tumultuous.
And to think for a minute, I don't know how large your congregation was, but to think for a minute that this little tiny single mom wanted 200 people to despise her within 3 seconds of a decision definitely was not anything that I
No,
gave thought to.
Yeah.
Those
no.
people raised me. They
Mm,
bounced me on their knees. They
mm,
changed my diapers and wiped the spit off my mouth and combed my hair and dressed me and took care of me and loved
yeah.
me and brought me into their homes. And they were my aunties and my uncles and my
Mm,
nieces and my nephews and my cousins. They replaced a family I never had. And to
yeah.
think for 1 minute that I wanted all of them to hate me, I never thought that that would happen. And I
Mm,
Yep.
think that that is something that a lot of us forget about, or a lot of my Christian friends forget about, is I didn't want to leave and then know that you would hate me. I
yeah,
thought when I left, I
absolutely.
would still be loved.
Yeah.
And that never happened. And it's
No.
not church hate. It's not church hurt. It's not because you chose to deny God.
Mm,
It's because you had to speak your own truths and had to be able to become authentically me.
yeah,
And that was not authentically who I was.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I think there's something that like I've really deconstructed over the past couple of, I guess, years, is that you get people from all walks of life. You get good Christians and you get shitty atheists. Like you just get, and that's something that my parents tried to kind of get me back to the faith. You know, they're like, yeah, but have you seen what your church, what our church did for you? You know, they're amazing. They're good because God loves. And I'm like, no, God had nothing to do with them. They are amazing people. They are good people, but that's because they are good people, not because there is some guy in the sky telling them how to believe and what to believe. It isn't God that told them to bring the food to us. It's them. Their hearts were to be there for us when we needed them. They're good people. So just like you get
Yes.
good atheists, you get good Christians. You get shitty Christians and you get shitty atheists.
Yep.
It's just how people are.
And it's crazy because when you're part of the deconstruction community, you get to see both sides of it, right? Because
Yes.
you get to see those shitty atheists, you get to see the shitty
Mm,
Christians. Whereas when you're part of the church, all Christians are good and everybody else is bad. And it
yes,
doesn't matter who
exactly.
those Christians are, what those Christians believe, or any of the things that those Christians have done, they're automatically
Mm,
good just because they're a Christian. And
yeah.
I
And they're
think about that all
forgiven.
the time. And the people that you blindly trust in those circles, it's just crazy when I think back on it. Like, so crazy when I think back on it with having four
Yeah,
Mm,
kids,
because
bringing
now
them
I
up
can
in the
think
church.
back and
But
say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no,
But
you're
now I
fine.
can look back and say, that wasn't a good Christian.
Yeah.
That wasn't a good person.
yeah.
That was an evil person disguised as a Christian.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to decipher that
Mm,
until I became an atheist. And
yeah.
then I realized that people are people. It doesn't matter what label or what hat you're wearing for the day,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly.
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
Dan, we are really grateful for you being here on our show with us today. I am going to leave your links in our show notes. That way, our guests can find you on the TikTok and see what the Faithless Ones is all about if they want to check into that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And again, Dan, from the bottom of my heart, you've been a friend for a long time, and I can't wait to be able to give you a hug in person.
I
Your
can't
wife
wait.
and your little guy. I am like so excited that that will happen eventually one day next year. But thank you so much for being honest and open with us about your journey and what you've struggled. I know we've only touched on like the top portions of it, But your story is so important, and I hope the people of South Africa feel that we did it justice today.
Thank you both so much. It was really an amazing experience being here. So I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Much
everyone.
love.
Bye-bye.
The preceding podcast is solely owned by its host or hosts and is distributed by BIG Media LLC. Copyright 2025, all rights reserved.